Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go.
Hello and welcome to Rao's IAS DNS session. We are going to have a discussion on today's newspaper, The Hindu, Delhi edition, dated 7th July 2022. We shall take up articles important for civil service examination and discuss them as per the demand of the exam. Before we begin, there's a small announcement. Like every Thursday, today as well, a question has been uploaded from the DNS. This question has been taken from the DNS of 25th April 2022. If you feel like, you can go through the DNS to gather the content once again so that you can write a rich, structured answer for this question. It's a way to enhance your absorption from the DNS. Please participate in this answer writing and get it evaluated from the faculties at Rao's IAS. There is an article on page number 2, ensure supply of sanitary napkins to schools. This is a directive given by the High Court to the government. See, here we shall discuss the topic very comprehensively. As comprehensively as it can be done, we will include other topics as well. We'll make it very broad. We'll discuss about the issue of menstruation in general, and also specifically we shall also discuss about the issue of menstrual leave. I'll take up the issue from the perspective of different GS paper, so you also understand when you read a newspaper article, you must analyze the issue, particularly the one which are making news for quite some time, which appears to be important for the exam, from multiple perspectives, and also from the perspective of different GS papers, because you don't know which topic will appear in which GS papers, because cryptocurrency has appeared in GS paper 1. I will discuss the issue of menstruation and paid leave during menstruation from the perspective of GS paper 1, 2, 3 and 4. And by the virtue of that, I'll also show you how you can look at any particular issue from different prism. Let's begin by analyzing the issue from the perspective of GS paper 2. First of all, let me give you arguments that people generally make for not giving paid leave during menstruation. From the perspective of polity, if you see, the argument is that it will be discriminatory for men. It will violate the right to equality. One can be ignorant enough to say that periods are weakening for only some women or some percentage of women. Many women are capable of functioning at full capacity even during periods. So in this regard, the menstruation leave will be misused. Such an initiative can also create prejudice against women employees in the eyes of employer. Additionally, the argument is that sick leave can be used during menstruation, or you can increase the number of sick leaves for both men and women, and those increased number of sick leaves can be used by women. In that way, it will not be discriminatory for men, because both men and women will enjoy the same number of sick leaves. The counter argument is that it does not violate the right to equality, because Article 15(3) empowers the state to make special provision for women and children, which is an exception to the general rule laid down under Article 15(1), the right to equality. It has been laid down by the Supreme Court in the Government of Andhra Pradesh versus BP Vijay Kumar case 1995 that special provision for women in Article 15(3) means that the provision which the state may make to improve women's participation in all activities under the supervision and control of the state. It can be in the form of either affirmative action or reservation. By the virtue of this judgment, menstrual leave policies like other women's rights legislation, for example, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, the Hindu Succession Amendment Act 2005, just like these legislations, the paid leave for menstruation will also not infringe Article 15(1) of the Constitution. Further, Article 42 demands that the state shall make provision for securing just and humane condition of work and maternity relief. So just and humane condition at workplace is a requirement, is a constitutional mandate. That will include toilets, privacy for maintaining proper hygiene during menstruation, and that will also include leave during menstruation. There is also an issue of legal inconsistency. Many legislations like Factory Act 1948, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, these legislation talks about the protective measures especially for women. It talks about various aspects of health, leave, working hours, working conditions, etc. But these legislations are silent on menstrual condition of women. There is another aspect of legal inconsistency. See, Maternity Benefit Act 1961 gives maternity leave, but maternity is a choice and menstruation is an inescapable monthly biological process. It is natural, it will happen. When we are recognizing the special requirement of women during maternity, which is occasional and is by choice, we must also recognize the condition of women during menstruation, which is recurring and natural compulsory. In this regard, you can also talk about certain cases, national or international. In India, by the way, you must know, Bihar is the only state which provides 2 days of special leave every month for menstruation purpose. Internationally, there are many countries like Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, Taiwan. They provide menstrual leave. Japan provides it since 1947. Indonesia has recently started it, but these countries provide 2 days of menstrual leave. The demand in the beginning, as we have seen by Delhi Labour Union, is of 4 days. You must also be aware that there is one menstruation benefit bill pending in the parliament. It was introduced as a private member bill in 2017 in Lok Sabha, but it has not been passed yet. The bill also demands 2 days of paid leave every month. The bill, if passed in this form, will be applicable both for public and private sectors. The bill also calls for better facilities for rest and for maintaining hygiene at workplace. The bill also talks about for flexibility for taking some time off during work at workplace. And the bill also talks about giving benefit to female students of class 8 and above. But the bill is in limbo right now because it has not passed in Lok Sabha and has not been sent to Rajya Sabha. Now let us discuss the same issue from the perspective of GS Paper 1. In the syllabus of GS Paper 1, in the society section, you will find topics like salient features of Indian society, from where you will pick patriarchy, gender bias. There are topics population and associated issues. In population, you study demography. In population, you also study the distribution of various sections in the society. So you can talk about the percentage of literacy, the percentage of girls who get menstruation hygiene, the percentage of girls who leave schooling or job due to menstrual issues and things like that. There's a topic poverty and developmental issues, and we will touch on social empowerment. In paper 2, we were talking about constitutional provisions, legislations, the governance aspect. Here we have to bring in societal aspect. Menstruation is a natural, healthy biological process for women, but it is still considered as a taboo in Indian society. That is a societal aspect. The effect of it is very brutal on women. Menstruation is associated with the onset of puberty in girls, and many a times it brings restrictions. It sets new norms and rules for girls. It may lead to isolation. It calls for changed expectation in the behavior of girls by the society. Due to menstruation and due to considering it as a taboo, the day-to-day activities of girls, they are severely hampered. And all these happens because of prevalence of hegemonic patriarchy, the gender bias in our Indian society. During menstruation, girls and women, many a times, they are not allowed to enter kitchen or the places of worship like temple. It is considered as a taboo, and the reason for taboo? Illiteracy, poverty, lack of awareness. And these places women at high risk of infection and critical health implications. Now from the population section, you can talk about distribution of population in various ways. For example, I'm giving you a study of UNICEF of 2011. According to this, only 13% of girls in India are aware of menstruation before menarche, the first onset of menstruation. 60% of girls missed school on account of menstruation. 79% girls faces low confidence due to menstruation. The report said that 44% were embarrassed and humiliated over the restrictions imposed on them. Therefore, menstruation adversely impacts women's education, equality, maternal and child health, covering the social development topic mentioned in the syllabus. So in this paper, you will not look at things from the legal prism, but from the perspective of attitude prevailing in the society. In order to deal with the problem, we will not talk so much of legislations and constitutional articles, although you can mention them, but you will talk about the societal aspect more. For example, you have to have social awareness about such critical social issues. You can give example from the sociological things, for example, movies or literatures or puppetry or Nukkad Natak, any such thing. You can mention about the recent movie Padman. You can also mention about a documentary that was released recently and won award, period, end of sentence. These movies and documentaries highlighted the stigma surrounding menstruation and encouraged people to not see it as a taboo. You can talk about the government initiatives for social empowerment. You can talk about menstrual education, menstrual hygiene, and the wash infrastructure, water, sanitation, and hygiene, especially in rural regions. You can mention oxo biodegradable sanitary napkins and the need for promoting small-scale sanitary pad manufacturing units. See, in this paper, you have to look at things from sociological perspective as in happening in society, and the solution must also be encouraged from the society. So I have written here, menstruation health cannot be achieved only through government efforts without addressing it as a social issue, requiring intervention at societal, community, and family level. You can also include some sociological thoughts, like I have written here, one is not born, but rather becomes a woman. This is a quote from Simone de Beauvoir. She is a progressive feminist and she has authored many books on women-related issues. It is the society that constructs norms and puts restrictions on women and converts the biological entity into a social construct of gender. Now let's look at things from the perspective of GS paper 3. In GS paper 3, what will you talk about? You'll talk about employment, labor force, social security, economy. See, female labor force participation rate is declining. As per the data of Niti Aayog, it was 36.7% in 2004-5. In 2018, it came down to 23.7%. And it is a paradox because female labor force participation rate is declining despite higher growth, higher educational attainment among women, higher age of marriage, and declining fertility. The female labor force participation rate in rural region is 26.7% and in urban region it's around 16%. But the decline in female labor force participation rate has been higher in rural region. If you look at India's ranking in the Global Gender Gap Index, there is a sub-index in this index which is economic opportunity and participation. In this sub-index, India ranks 149 out of 153 countries. So the workplace must be made conducive for effective participation of women, and menstruation leave will be one effective step in this direction. The argument on the flip side could be that the cost of hiring women will increase and it will lead to defeminization of formal sector. When Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2016 was passed, it was found out by survey of Team Lease Services that around 1.1 to 1.8 million women lost their job in 2018-19 on account of implementation of this act because maternity benefit was doubled from 3 to 6 months. The economic solution, the way ahead could be that you increase the number of paid sick leaves for both men and women. Although that will increase the cost of doing business, but still men and women will be at par. And there will be no discrimination at the recruitment level. And paid sick leaves can be viewed as an effective social security, also during the menstruation period. Then in this paper, you must also talk about women employed in informal sector, which constitutes 90% of women. In conclusion, you can bring the economic aspect. You can say that according to UN Women, women are the ultimate economic accelerator. They invest almost all their income in productive areas. So we need to increase the economic opportunity and participation of women, and for that, conducive environment must be created through menstruation leave among other measures. Now let us discuss the same issue from the perspective of GS paper 4. In GS paper 4, you begin from the issue of rights of individual. Then you talk about interaction of individuals with society. Then you talk about societal norms prevailing in the society. Women have right to be treated with dignity and respect. Opportunity must be given to maintain hygiene during the period of menstruation, especially in urban areas where workplace is crowded. If that opportunity is not there, then right to dignified life is not there. The issue is also about our collective social conscience. If we do not recognize this critical issue, it shows that we are ethically blind. We fail to see the emotional, physiological, psychological, hormonal suffering of women during this period. It shows that there is absence of moral compass in our society. We do not have value of empathy and compassion. Denying women menstruation leave also shows that we are in possession of wrong cognition, meaning wrong information. Some of us must believe that all women do not have pain during menstruation. But the thing is, the number of women who are in pain is immensely high. There may be some who may work comfortably during menstruation, but that does not discount for the fact that millions of women are under excruciatingly high level of pain during menstruation. Denying women menstruation leave also shows that there is lack of social influence to maintain the gender parity. See, B.R. Ambedkar has said that I measure the progress of community by the degree of the progress which women have achieved. Society cannot progress by rights of one half of society remaining unrecognized. Gandhiji has said that good of one is in good of all. If women do not progress, then child rearing will not happen effectively. Next generation will not be healthy, physically and otherwise. And in conclusion, you can quote a philosopher, you can bring a philosophy, a ethical principle, or anything of that sort. Here I have said that we must live like different cells of an organism, where health of one affects the health of others. This is a concept of society given by Plato. And women constitute 50% of cells in the body, if we see society that way. So their health, their well-being, fulfilling their physiological and psychological need is very important for a healthy society. If you combine all these perspectives of GS paper 1, 2, 3 and 4, then you can write an essay on any topic.
This is the editorial article from page number 6, Hate Crime Punishment. From the perspective of the examination, we shall discuss the linkage between hate crime and violence in society.
Jonathan and Maynard in their work have identified hate speech as important catalyst for mass violence. They also have cited that in the UN War Crimes Tribunal for the war crime that happened in Rwanda, hate speech was identified as one important factor for the genocide that happened in Rwanda. From the perspective and the purpose of our examination, this model I have discussed with you multiple times in previous DNS. The thing is that human behavior comes from attitude, attitude comes from our value system develops based on emotions. And emotion in human beings can come in two various ways. One is our cognition, the information that we hold. Your emotion develops as a reaction to the information that is given to you. And in long term, the knowledge that you have, the wisdom that you have developed. Suppose if government's advisory comes to be safe because of a possible bomb blast or terrorist attack in the area that you're living, then immediately you will have some emotion of fear, panic. If before examination you are pleased to learn that the examination date has been extended, then you may feel happy, elated if you were not well prepared. If you come to think about it, from morning to evening, your emotion, your mood, everything depends on the information that you're possessing. That is one reason why fake news is destructive, because fake news by nature is having fake information, wrong cognition that will develop wrong emotion or negative emotion. There is one additional aspect to this. Emotion in human beings is also developed as a reaction to emotion of others. For example, if an old lady comes and starts crying in front of you because of the misery and difficulty she's facing, then you will also develop some emotion, perhaps sympathy or even empathy. If father tells on his deathbed to his son something, son receives not just the information, but that information is wrapped up with lots of emotion because it is coming from the father at that juncture of his life. The point is that cognition develops emotion, but emotion is also developed by emotion of the person giving the information. If you receive the information that people of certain community have gathered at a place, and because of that there has been further spread of COVID-19 in the society. If you receive this information, you will understand that the people of the community, the leaders, they have acted irresponsibly. You will develop certain attitude towards them, which may or may not change in the due course of time. But attitude, as you can see from this model, develops not only from cognition but also emotion. In fact, cognition and emotion are two components of attitude. It also depends the manner and the way in which you have received the information. If the person or the television news anchor has delivered the information in a very agitative manner, If you have received the information in very loud tone with disgust, shock, anger, that will create some reactionary emotion in you. You may also feel disgusted. You may also develop the negative emotion of hate. Now your attitude will be compounded. The attitude formation is not result of only information, but that is also result of negative emotion. This attitude will be very, very strong. And that will make the attitudinal change very difficult. Even if you have some positive experience later on, you get some positive information, that may not undo the negativity that you have imbibed. That may not change the negative attitude that you have already formed. So hate speech not only sometimes gives fake information, false information, inaccurate information, but it also develops negative emotion, maybe apathy or even more hate. Supreme Court in various judgment has observed that hate speech leads to marginalization of vulnerable section. Vulnerable section by its very nature definition requires more attention, more help. If by propaganda or otherwise using hate speech or other elements, apathy is developed for vulnerable section, then that will lead to easily violation of their rights. Apathy will also break the constitutional value of fraternity. Social cohesion will break down, social capital will erode, the concept of unity in diversity will get a setback, which will result in communal violence, riots, and it can escalate all the way up to genocide. It will erode ethos of the society. It will erode the concept of Vasudev Kutumbakam. It will erode the concept of Sarva Dharma Sambhav. It will erode the idea of India. That's how hatred is destructive of person's wisdom and conscience and can poison a nation's spirit. Now, what is the solution? One way of controlling negative attitude formation is social contact. In the DNS dated 7 January 2021, I have discussed with you the importance of social interaction. There we discussed the contact hypothesis given by Gordon Allport. We understood the importance of social contact, the importance of civic engagement in developing cohesion, and also acting as a barrier against negative attitude formation. Social contact, civic engagement give you an opportunity to correct your cognition. If you have been given wrong information, then with social interaction, you come to know the right thing. You may come to know that the negative image that was developed in your mind against certain people, community, that was not correct. And interaction on personal level also create the reactive emotions. Together, they help correct your attitude. Another method to preempt speech from causing the violence is a more proactive one. It is a method that was given by Jonathan and Maynard, which is counter speech. They have said that counter speech can counter the hate speech. You must be aware that presently we have many fact check websites and they do real-time fact check, especially of politicians. Meaning if wrong information is presented in public domain, you correct it there and then. It was also suggested by Jonathan and Maynard to create a counter speech narrative. I am picking this case from their work. In Kenya in 2012, a TV drama show was created. The show was on dangerous speech. It was designed to inoculate audience against hate speech, to train the mind of audience to be skeptical about hate speeches. If somebody is presenting the information in a very agitative way, you have to be skeptical about the information that is giving, and if you are skeptical, then emotional outburst, the reactionary emotion in you because of the emotion of presenter will be very limited. Later on, as per the research work of some scholars at the University of Pennsylvania, Kenyans who watched the episodes were more skeptical about inflammatory speech than those who did not watch the episodes. See, many Indians are skeptical about politicians, especially the promises that are made before election. The negative image that many of us hold towards politicians, politics, or the poll promises, a large part of it has been developed because of media. You must have seen multiple movies presenting politicians in a bad light, highlighting their manipulations, their false promises. So when you get to read about promises of employment or housing or road construction or electrification or whatever, before election, you are not very elated, you are not excited, rather you are skeptical about it. So to fight hate speech, we have to develop counter speech, and to deal with agitative, provocative way of news presentation, which the CGI has raised a question on, we have to develop a counter way of news presentation, maybe the one that was there in Doordarshan. where news is given as information in calm and composed manner, so that the reactionary emotion is not there, negative attitude formation, even if some facts goes wrong, is minimal, and hence the negative behavior of citizens is minimal, and nation's spirit is safeguarded.
There is an article on page number 1. SpiceJet gets DGCA notice for safety lapses. There have been multiple incidents of safety lapses of SpiceJet in last 1 month. Here we shall discuss civil aviation safety regulation mechanisms.
First and foremost thing is, Directorate General of Civil Aviation is a statutory body. This is the nodal body that looks after air safety in India. It also sets the airworthiness standards and it gives the airworthiness certificate to airlines. Most importantly, it conducts the safety audits in India for the civil aviation sector. It coordinates all regulatory functions with International Civil Aviation Organization, which is a specialized UN body formed under Chicago Convention. International Civil Aviation Organization sets up various safety and regulatory parameters, and it gives ranking of various countries based upon conformity with those parameters. Registration of all civil aircraft, licensing of pilots and aircraft maintenance engineers, and the licensing of air traffic controller is all done by Directorate General of Civil Aviation. Remember, previously the licensing of air traffic controller was done by Airport Authority of India. But since 2018, this is done by Directorate General of Civil Aviation. This is important to remember because Directorate General of Civil Aviation works as an autonomous body, and Airport Authority of India works as public sector unit. So red flag was raised by International Civil Aviation Organization that licensing must be done by autonomous body, which is Directorate General of Civil Aviation in India. So after that, that role was taken up by DGCA instead of Airport Authority of India. DGCA is also authorized to conduct investigation into accidents and any incidents that it deems fit. One important function of Directorate General of Civil Aviation is to coordinate at national level the flexi use of airspace by civil and military aircrafts. So DGCA is the most important body in India concerning safety and regulation of civil aviation. There is another specialized body called as Bureau of Civil Aviation Security. And the main responsibility of Bureau of Civil Aviation Security is to lay down aviation security standards for civil flights in accordance to Chicago Convention, in accordance to the regulations laid down by International Civil Aviation Organization. The need of a separate specialized body was felt after many hijacking incidents in 1970s and 1980s. The third body related to safety in civil aviation industry in India is Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. This was formed in 2011 as an obligation under the Chicago Convention, which requires such a body to be there in every country. It investigates the aircraft accidents and incidents. Basically, it classifies the safety occurrence into accident, serious incident, and incident. It mandatorily investigates into accidents and serious incidents, but it can actually investigate any incident that it wants. This is basically an investigating body that swings into action after an incident happens, so that some learning can be taken after every incident. This also makes some safety recommendation, but that is first forwarded to Directorate General of Civil Aviation, which is the most important body concerning the safety in civil aviation. There is one important body working under the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which is not directly linked with the safety of civil aviation, but this is an important body to be considered because it deals with infrastructure development of airport. It was formed on 1st of April 1995 by merging International Airport Authority of India and National Airport Authority. Airport Authority of India deals with design, development, operation and maintenance of international and domestic airports and civil enclaves. Infrastructure in and around the airport that is dealt by Airport Authority of India. Developing proper runway will also be an important function of Airport Authority of India. It holistically deals with everything in and around the airport like passenger terminal, cargo terminal, the passenger facilities and the information system at the airport, And the operation area like runway, aprons, taxiway, all of it. It is difficult to point out who was responsible for not rectifying the lapse in the runway of Calicut International Airport. Was that Airport Authority of India, or was that Directorate General of Civil Aviation? Or the ultimate responsibility should come on Ministry of Civil Aviation. There are two important bodies working under the Ministry of Civil Aviation, although they are not related with safety of civil aviation. One of that body is Airport Economic Regulatory Authority of India. This is a statutory body formed under the Airport Economics Regulatory Authority of India Act 2008. It basically determines the tariff for aeronautical services, taking into consideration the capital expenditure that has incurred, the quality of service being provided, concessions offered by the central government, and the timely investment that has been done in the project. The other body is Commission of Railway Safety. It looks after the safety of rail travel and train operations, but you must remember that it functions under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. For the prelims examination, you must also know Chicago Convention. It is also called as the Convention on International Civil Aviation. This convention established the International Civil Aviation Organization, a specialized agency of UN, and it is charged with coordinating international air travel. The convention establishes rules pertaining to airspace, aircraft registration, safety, security, and sustainability of civil aviation. It also conducts safety audits, and the safety audit conducted by International Civil Aviation Organization in 2018 ranked India one of the lowest in the Asia Pacific region. India's ranking was lower than Myanmar, Bangladesh, Maldives, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, North Korea. The chief reason for the low ranking was the neglect of the aviation regulator DGCA. DGCA back then did not use to give license to air traffic controllers. Air traffic controllers are very important officers. They are responsible for smooth working of civil aviation industry. The licensing was given by Airport Authority of India. But this now has been corrected. The license for air traffic controller is now given by DGCA. Indian civil aviation industry is growing at a galloping pace, but the infrastructural development is not matching up that pace. The new civil aviation policy has given more power to the regulators, but more investment is required to develop international standard infrastructure in Indian civil aviation industry.
Track and field icon PT Usha, Telugu screenwriter V. Vijendra Prasad, and philanthropist and spiritual leader Virendra Hegde. They have been recently nominated to Rajya Sabha. Incidentally, these 4 new nominations to Rajya Sabha are from 4 southern states: Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka. President nominates members to Rajya Sabha, drawing the power from Article 80. Article 80 talks about the composition of the Council of States. It says that the Council of States shall consist of 12 members to be nominated by the President in accordance with the Clause 3 of this article. Clause 3 is that the members to be nominated by the President under Subclause A shall consist of persons having special knowledge or practical experience with regards to literature, science, art, and social service. But there has been a Supreme Court judgment on this. When Sachin Tendulkar was appointed, it was challenged that Sachin Tendulkar does not belong to any of these 4 categories. He isn't from literature, science, art, or social service background. Then the Supreme Court interpreted, as the Supreme Court is the final interpreter of the Constitution, that these criteria are only indicative. Appointments are not limited to these 4 categories. I must also bring your attention to Clause 2 of Article 80. The allocation of seats in the Council of States to be filled by the representatives of the states and of the Union Territories shall be in accordance with the provisions contained in the 4th schedule. And as you know that the 4th schedule contains the distribution of seats. You must know that the nominated members are at par with the elected members. They enjoy all the powers, privileges, and immunities available to any elected member of parliament. They can take part in the proceeding just like the normal member. Although there has been criticism that the nominated members are not enthusiastic, they are not very participating in the parliamentary proceedings. They show very limited interest in the legislative work, especially in the context of Sachin Tendulkar or actor Rekha or the appointed businessman Anu Aga. You must have heard this criticism. Nevertheless, they are in the proceedings of the parliament at par with the nominated members, except for one thing. They are not entitled to vote in the election of the President of India. Barring this, they have all the rights and privileges, just like a normal elected member. They can participate in the impeachment process. They can participate in any lawmaking process. They can also participate in the election of the vice president. But remember, for your prelims exam, they are not entitled to vote in the election of the president. Also, as per Article 99 of the Constitution, a nominated member is allowed 6 months' time if he wished to join a political party. Beyond 6 months, they have to remain independent candidate. A nominated member also has been exempted from filing his asset and liabilities under Section 75A of Representation of Peoples Act 1951. This section requires the elected member to file his or her asset liabilities within 90 days of taking the oath, but the nominated members are exempted. The rationale behind the principle of nomination to the Rajya Sabha is to facilitate the representation of eminent professionals who may not be in the position or who may not have the know-how or diligence or expertise to contest and win direct election. N. Gopalaswamy Iyengar, he was part of the drafting committee. He said that we also give an opportunity perhaps to seasoned people who may not be in the thickest of the political fray, but who might be willing to participate in the debate with an amount of learning and importance which we not ordinarily associate with House of People, the Lok Sabha. And in the first appointment of nominated members, the president nominated many eminent personalities, including scientists. But well, over the period of time, it just has become a tool for political nominations. The high ideal of nomination has been eroded. The ruling dispensation have repeatedly used the nominated category to shore up their numbers in the House. Even when the nominated members may not join political parties within 6 months, and they technically remain independent, but they still remain aligned with the ruling party. Criticism from these members seldom have appeared. But the political rationale behind the nomination was noble.